I serve as director of the Nursing is STEM Coalition and have the pleasure of serving as the host of today's webinar. I've been a registered nurse for 16 years and taught nursing for 11 years at the University of Vermont. I continue to maintain my teaching, clinical, and scholarship in the primary care setting in Burlington, Vermont. I served as the vice chair and director of the undergraduate nursing program at UVM prior to joining inSpring as their talent director for healthcare last year. Shortly after joining inSpring, I helped to co-found the Nursing is STEM Coalition, given my longstanding interest in professional nursing workforce development and the desire to play an active role in not only growing, but diversifying the professional nursing workforce. The Nursing is STEM initiative has strived to empower and build a coalition of professional nursing experts and interdisciplinary partners across the fields of practice, academia, and industry. Today's webinar is meant to serve as an overview of why this initiative is of critical importance to the advancement of professional nursing education and the professional nursing workforce. We're incredibly fortunate to have three internationally acclaimed nurse trailblazers to help lead today's discussion on how STEM designation can and will positively impact the future of nursing. Before handing it over to the moderator and panelists, I want to briefly review our agenda. First, a reminder that today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted for those unable to attend live. I will take a few moments to provide a broad level overview of why nursing should receive this designation, followed by our moderator and panelists who will have approximately 30 minutes for discussion. Our moderator, Rebecca, will pass it back to me for a brief summary of the action we can individually take to advance this petition, and Rebecca will then moderate our Q&A session. Please add your questions using the Q&A button or chat at the bottom of your Zoom browser, and we will address your questions during the Q&A session. To begin, everyone joining today is well aware of the current and growing nursing workforce crisis in the United States. It feels like each day we're presented with new alarming statistics and data pertaining to the number of nurses leaving the profession, declines in applications to nursing programs, and their secondary impacts on the health of our communities. In addition, while some initiatives have been successful in looking to not only grow, but diversify the professional nursing workforce, we continue to fall short. Nursing needs to continually promote initiatives that can bolster all forms of diversity and funding education pathways within our workforce. Perhaps the most important takeaway for attendees to walk away with today is the fact that simple actions can dramatically expand the size and diversity of the professional nursing workforce. As our panelists will elaborate upon, STEM designation has the capability to grow the professional nursing workforce, introduce new diverse populations to the field of nursing, and improve funding opportunities for both nursing programs and prospective and current students pursuing a nursing career. Importantly, STEM designation of nursing requires no legislative action, avoiding the complex political negotiations that we have all become overly familiar with. Our coalition's end goal is to achieve uniform acceptance of nursing as a STEM designated field amongst the various departments and foundations that define professional fields. For example, while the Department of Labor and the Department of Veterans Affairs both consider nursing as a STEM field, the National Science Foundation, Department of Homeland Security, and others have continued to exclude nursing. Our coalition will systematically approach these official designations to push further into mainstream acceptance as STEM and mobilize countless of K-12 and higher education funding opportunities to drive a sustainable workforce. It is now my pleasure to hand it over to today's moderator and panelists who will dive deeper into the why of nursing should receive across the board STEM designation. I'll pass it over to Rebecca Love, who will introduce herself and serve as moderator for today's discussion.
Jason, thank you. And thank you for bringing this attention directly to the level of national attention that this deserves. My name is Rebecca Love. I am a nurse. I have a long-standing history in both academia and corporate America. Currently, I am President Emeritus of SONSIEL, as well as the co-founder and commissioner for the Commission for Nurse Reimbursement. Today's discussion brings forward national attention to conversations where we've seen systemic barriers and policies that have prevented nurses from achieving parity to a national level of many other of our co-professions in healthcare and beyond. The importance of identifying nurses as part of the STEM designation allows for the nursing profession to access billions of dollars in federal investment aimed at expanding opportunities for those organizations and professions designated as science, technology, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, all of which are fundamental principles found within the profession of nursing, more so today than ever before in history. Throughout the course of our next period of time, you are going to meet Yvonne Carmona-Mensah, who is currently a Johns Hopkins School of Nursing professor and the co-founder of Ghanaian Diaspora Nursing Alliance, and Suja Thomas, an adjunct faculty at the university and a National Association of Indian Nurses of America. The great purpose of our conversation today is to educate, inform, and also activate our profession to take action to make this decision happen this year as a designation. Jason, I'm going to turn it back over to you before we jump in so that you can actually explain the process by which we will actually help people learn about the next steps.
Absolutely. So in terms of next steps for designation, something to keep in mind as we move forward is to really look at the right side of your screen. You can do this as we have our conversation today. There's a QR code which will take you directly to our website, where you can learn more about how we're approaching addressing these official designations at a government and nonprofit level. If you haven't already, you can also just type our website into your browser and make sure that you click the Join Our Coalition button. Once you've done so, make sure that you're sharing it with your LinkedIn, on your social networks, and on social media. If everyone on the call today could commit to 5 or 10 signatures, we would have hundreds already as we advance our petitions. Our goal, as we've received very clear feedback and recommendation, is to ensure that we have a strong coalition of support behind us as we submit these petitions. So I'll advance back to our panelists, and then I'll share this during our Q&A session as well.
Thank you. And while we do that, I would now like to take a moment for both Yvonne and Suja to do a brief introductions to both of each other so that we can dive into the discussion. Yvonne, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yvonne Commodore-Mensah. I'm an associate professor at the Johns Hopkins Schools of Nursing and Public Health. I'm also co-founder and president of the Ghanaian Diaspora Nursing Alliance, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to contribute to this conversation because this is personal. I was affected by this issue when I was an international student more than a decade ago when I sought to apply for the 24-month extension of the optional practice or optional practical training. And I learned that nursing wasn't designated as a STEM field. So I'm truly honored that I have the opportunity to join the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Suja.
Thank you. My name is Suja Thomas. I am actually a clinical lead and hospital nursing administrator at Samuel Stratton VA Medical Center. And I am also the current president of NINA, which is the National Association of Indian Nurses of America. I also teach at a couple universities, and I am also a CWC and consultant and a board certified nurse practitioner. So as the current president of National Association of Indian Nurses of America, it is both an honor and privilege to address you today. Our mission in NINA is to empower nurses, elevate our profession, and champion the well-being of our communities. Today, we would like to shed light on the essential aspect of nursing, one that always remains in the shadows but deserves the spotlight, nursing as a STEM initiative. And I'm happy to join Rebecca and you on in this panel.
Wonderful. We're going to start off with our questions, but first we want to make sure that you understand the definition of STEM, which again stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Currently, I will share a list within the chat for you to actually review some of the definitions that are designated by ICE. Such things such as reproductive biology, cardiovascular science, exercise physiology, pharmacology, pathophysiology, veterinary services, animal health, animal genes, ceramic sciences, animation, and forest science are an example of some from that list. But as you heard of where we started, Many of these classifications are the exact classes that nurses take to consider themselves qualified to be nurses. Everything from biology to pharmacology to cardiovascular health are absolute imperatives for us to understand as a profession, but probably more so today than ever before. Nurses work in a technologically advanced setting, unlike most other settings in any other work environment today. Yvonne, as we're looking at basically understanding the developments within fields of science, technology, and mathematics, what are some examples of technological scientific advancements that have come out of the nursing profession over the last decade?
So as you said, nursing isn't currently designated as a STEM field, but to be designated as a STEM field, the profession has to demonstrate an involvement of research, innovation, or development of new technologies. So when we reflect on this definition, I'll say that nursing has always been a STEM field. Let's start all the way back in the 19th century. We all know about Florence Nightingale, who was famous for her work in the Crimean War. Florence Nightingale was recognized as a social reformer, but she was also a statistician and the founder of modern nursing. So interestingly, the first book that she wrote was titled Notes on Nursing, What It Is and What It's Not. More than 165 years later, we're still having this conversation on what nursing is. And I hope by the end of this conversation, we can acknowledge that indeed nursing is a STEM field. So let's also bring it back to the 20th century. So many of you may be aware of the crash cart. So the crash cart is a mobile cart that is stocked with emergency equipment and medications that is used to respond to cardiac emergency and save lives. Well, that was actually invented by a nurse by the name of Anita Dorr. She's an emergency nurse from the New York area who is credited as the inventor of the crash cart. So that's another concrete example of what nursing innovation. Now let's bring it to the 21st century. We have our own Rebecca Love, who is recognized as a nursing innovator. And there are many more nurses out there who are innovators. And we can also look to Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, so who is a public health nurse, and she's also credited as a health equity innovator because she and members of the Black Maternal Health Caucus introduced the Black Maternal Health Omnibus Act of 2021, which is advancing policy solutions to improve maternal health and disparities in maternal outcomes. So those are concrete examples of the fact that nursing has always been a STEM field and remains a STEM field.
And to your point, the entire profession of nursing is based on research. And largely, let's be very honest, during the time of the pandemic, we know that much of what we knew failed us. So nurses were constantly innovating on the front lines of healthcare systems around the world to save patients' lives. For nursing not to be identified as a STEM profession continues to keep nursing without access to key research, key momentums, key grants, key financial support, but more importantly, definitions that will help elevate and define nursing to lead us into the 21st century so that more of the next generation want to choose nursing. Because if we only see STEM as being worth billions of dollars in investment from the next generation to choose which professions to do so for access to greater financial futures, if nursing is left out of that designation, not only do we risk that next generation, but our own universities that have invested into nursing as an absolute necessity as a profession. And right now, most nursing students in this country are locked out of important programs that they can advance. All of their prerequisites are identified as STEM courses for every other profession on this list. But nurses must wait months and then sometimes years to be able to take a pharmacology course because nursing is not identified as a STEM. Now, I want to take this actually back to an important part, which much of nursing history is tied up in the women's rights movement. Still to this day, nursing is made up nearly 95% women. And this is an issue that we have to wonder if is a primarily female designation. Are there negative historical perspectives of the nursing profession that have likely influenced consideration of nursing as a STEM field? And how much do you contribute to longstanding implicit biases, primarily against women, which are driving this designation. So, Suja, why don't you start first? What is the impact of history and implicit biases that might be driving the undercurrent for nursing to achieve parity as a science, technology, engineering, and mathematic designation?
Yes, Rebecca, great question. There are negative historical perspectives of the nursing profession that have likely influenced the consideration, as Rebecca mentioned, to consider nursing as a STEM field. Throughout the history, nursing has been viewed through a narrow lens, primarily as a profession focused solely on direct patient care. While caring for patients is at the core of nursing, this perception fails to recognize the diverse and multifaceted nature of the profession. Historically, nursing has been viewed as a subordinate profession to medicine, with nurses often being seen as an assistant to physicians rather than as an autonomous healthcare professionals. Communication between physicians and nurses was one way, with physicians giving orders and the nurses carrying them out, further reinforcing the idea of nursing as a task-oriented rather than a knowledge-driven profession. This negative historical perspective has limited the recognition and acknowledgement of the nursing as a STEM discipline, despite profession's significant contributions to advancements in healthcare and science. It is time to challenge these outdated perceptions and recognize nursing for what it truly is, a dynamic, evolving profession that plays a crucial role in shaping the future of healthcare. Nurses are not just caregivers. They are scientists, educators, patient advocates, policymakers, researchers, and population health leaders. They possess a broad knowledge base and a unique set of professional skills that extend far beyond the bedside. Throughout history, nursing has played a crucial role in healthcare, evolving to meet the changing needs of the society. And we all know that nursing has always been maintained the status as one of the most trusted professions. Nursing has also made significant contributions to evidence-based practice, as Johan mentioned earlier. Florence Nightingale's work during the Crimean War revolutionized nursing by emphasizing the importance of sanitation, hygiene, in preventing infection and illness. Her approach to nursing, based on observation, data collection, and critical analysis, laid the foundation of evidence-based practice. Today, nursing continues to evolve, with the nurse practitioners playing a vital role in delivering high-quality, cost-effective healthcare services. Despite these advancements, nursing has not included in the Department of Homeland Security list of STEM-designated degrees. By acknowledging nursing as a STEM field, we can help elevate the profession, attract more diverse talent, and ensure that nurses receive the recognition and support they deserve for their invaluable contributions to healthcare and society.
Absolutely. And Suja,
Yeah.
as you're saying, with regards to the impact that they're having on nursing, the impact that they have on healthcare, nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system. We see when there is no nurses, there is no healthcare. And if there is one greater focus from a public health initiative from our society being able to function, nursing is absolutely critical to maintaining healthcare as we know it in the country, but not only that, worldwide. And regardless, the intense amount of innovation and research that is taking place around the nursing workforce today, even beyond 200 years ago today, is absolutely a changing environment. So please go on.
Yes, that's very true. And also, how much of these long-standing implicit biases against primarily driven field would affect the designation of a STEM, for nursing profession? So these implicit biases or unconscious automatic mental processes that leads to associations and reactions that can heavily impact how we perceive and value the nursing profession. One fundamentally flawed bias that many hold toward nursing as a primarily female-driven world, as Rebecca mentioned. If that is, this perception has social, political, and economic consequences, which likely influence how nursing is funded, recognized, and valued in society. More specifically, a commonly held bias is that it is responsibility of nurses to do the simpler task and provide motherly care, While nursing is naturally a profession that deeply invests into their patients' well-being, this should not discount the nurse's knowledge and other vital job that she performs. Another commonly held implicit bias for nursing is its categorization as an applied discipline. On one hand, this allows us to embrace person-centered, integrated agenda that is essential for providers providing holistic care. On the other hand, this bias could lead to the perception that nursing is a jack of all trades and master of none, which diminishes the value of our work. These biases contribute to the divide between the hard and soft sciences, with disciplines like nursing often being undervalued and overlooked. This has implications for workforce development, funding, and immigration policy. In the United States, for example, the acronym STEM began to be used in education and immigration debates to address the perceived lack of qualified candidates for technological positions. However, while the Bureau of Labor Statistics include nursing as a STEM field and STEM adjacent, the Department of Commerce's Economics and Statistics Administration does not. It is crucial that we recognize and address these implicit bias to ensure that nursing is valued and recognized for the vital role it plays in healthcare and society. By challenging these biases, we can work towards a more equitable and inclusive future for the nursing profession.
Suja, thank you. And I think to your point, the entire idea of nursing is how do we make sure that this profession, to your point, is not necessarily a jack of all trades. Nurses specialize in specific fields to advance forward the human health for the entire world. So Yvonne, please jump in. What are your thoughts with regards to the implicit biases around nursing and the lack of ability to actually identify nursing as a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics designation?
Yes, I do agree that unfortunately these gender stereotypes do exist, where nursing has historically been seen as a feminine profession. But I'm also encouraged by people like Jason on the call, and Precious Dodu, who's also a male nurse on the call. And we know that we're doing a better job in terms of diversifying the nursing workforce, where in the US now men make up nearly 12% of nurses. So we're doing a better job, but some of these gender stereotypes do exist. But as you said earlier, Rebecca, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we all witnessed the tremendous sacrifices that healthcare professionals and especially nurses made to keep all of us alive. And so, yes, our compassion and our care, these are attributes that nurses are known for. But that's not what kept people alive. It's the fact that our practice is rooted in science. So from evaluating fluid and electrolyte imbalances, to monitoring heart rhythms, to determining whether someone is decompensating or doing worse, yes, care and compassion are important, but we kept people alive because of our skills and our training. And it actually requires a very high level of training and problem solving that unfortunately a lot of people do not acknowledge. But I also say that it's also because of how nursing is portrayed in the media. And frankly, when we think about, for instance, Halloween, and we think about what a nurse looks like, and unfortunately, we do the profession a disservice when we don't speak up against how nursing is portrayed. And if anyone doubts that indeed nursing is a rigorous field, I would say that take the NCLEX. And I think there are some lessons that we will all learn that indeed nursing is an autonomous profession, and we are highly trained and skilled, and the work that we do is absolutely critical. So yes, we are at I would say crossroads in terms of making this decision to designate nursing as a STEM field, but it's always been a STEM field. The other thing I'll also acknowledge is that there's also been this lack of academic recognition. So nursing education hasn't always been considered on par with other academic disciplines, because it wasn't until the mid-20th century when sort of nursing education was hospital-based diploma programs and has since transitioned to university level degree programs. So these are standalone programs that award degrees. So as nursing has evolved, we also need to evolve in sort of our perception of the field as well. And yes, I think it also has to do with the evaluation of women's work. I think this is not only unique to nursing as a profession, but historically we know that the work that women do is devalued. And as you said, Rebecca, over 90% of nurses globally are women. And so that's why we have to honestly push back against some of these narratives. But I'm also encouraged because considerable progress has been made in the recent decades, but we still have a long way to go to sort of fight back against some of these stereotypes as well.
No, and I appreciate that. And I think, Yvonne, when we're looking at this, we are seeing a world of change. And I think if we remember during the pandemic, I remember our organization started doing calls from nurses that they were heading in there on their shift, leaving their shift, talking about how everything around them was failing. And I remember nurses saying, you're going to have patients walking into the emergency room, put a pulse ox on them. They're going to be laughing and talking to you. You're going to put that pulse ox on them. They're going to be at 70%, and you're going to be intubating them in the course of an hour. And the nurse is saying, we don't have PPE. How are they designing PPE on the floor to keep themselves safe? And then other nurses who are establishing that long tubing so that you could deliver medications from outside rooms. And then nurses who are saying, you know what, you should be flipping patients onto their stomachs because they breathe better. Completely contra to any science that we had ever done historically on respiratory challenges before. Nurses not only innovated, they researched on those moments, and they basically took action when everything else was failing. All science, all technology, everything that was failing came down to the hands of the nurse to deliver those cares. So to your point, what we saw was an advanced movement of nurses to the forefront of healthcare leadership during the pandemic. They set up all of the field hospitals, they directed all of the coordination of care, and they kept this country operating. If there was ever a time to do this now, the time is now. Because if we can't get nursing designated as a STEM after the COVID pandemic, the question is, why would anyone want to identify as a nurse today? Because without equal parity and representation to all of the other sciences and all of the other professions who get this designation, nursing deserves to be on this list. So if we are looking forward to the next generation in front of us, why is this going to be critical that young people will choose nursing in the future? Because we graduate currently 185,000 nursing students a year in the United States, more than any other degreed professional, but we lose nearly 60% of all new nursing graduates within 2 years of practice. We are producing nurses, but we are churning through them. So the question is, what can we do to change the designation so that we can create sustainable programs and funding to keep these nurses at the bedside and drive that next generation in? And Yvonne, I'm going to start with you. What can we do to do this to help make sure the next generation chooses nursing as the profession that they want for their future?
And Rebecca, you really communicated the urgency of this issue. If not now, when, really? And so we say that nurses and healthcare professionals are heroes. So let's acknowledge them as such. So in terms of what we can do, we also talked about the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of people are not exposed to nursing as a career very early in childhood. And I wasn't encouraged to be a nurse because I was told that I was doing well in the sciences, so I should become a physician. So unfortunately, there was a lot of pushback when I said, no, I want to be a nurse. That's the path I choose. And so we also need to work to encourage young women and men who are academically strong in different fields to also consider a path in nursing. And for me, a Johnson & Johnson poster changed my life. I had never considered nursing until I saw a Johnson & Johnson poster that said, "Dare to be a nurse." And I was really fortunate to be mentored by some amazing nurses. And that's what makes a difference. Like you said, Rebecca, how do we encourage people to come into the field? Is that one-on-one mentorship? My psych nursing professor, Dr. Diane Detmore, after I took an exam, she sent me an email and said, "Yvonne, I want to encourage you to pursue advanced degrees in nursing." And I was that shy nursing student who sat in the back and did not want to engage, and she saw me. So to answer your question directly, we need to think about how we can invest in mentorship programs. Nurses should be in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, showing them what nurses can do. Because unfortunately, like we said, we allow others to tell the narrative or tell the story in terms of what nurses can do. They need to see for themselves. How do we partner? And when you think about all of these academic institutions and schools of nursing, how do we become more visible in communities and visit these schools and show them what a nurse can do? That a nurse can be a nurse and an entrepreneur and an innovator and a business person. And so, and a scientist and an engineer. So the list goes on. So there's a path for everyone in nursing. And so I think we should invest. And you talked about investments. There are funds that are necessary. And so if we allow this STEM designation to happen, it unlocks billions of dollars for schools of nursing and academic institutions to invest in, one, hiring talented faculty and retaining them, because we know that's one of the reasons why schools of nursing are turning away nursing applicants. They don't have enough faculty, but unfortunately, nursing schools are not eligible for billions of dollars that may come from the National Science Foundation and other organizations that don't frankly see nursing as a STEM field. We need to change that. And we also need this funding to support scholarships. Unfortunately, nursing schools are expensive. And let's acknowledge that that is a barrier to people pursuing a path or career in nursing. So those funds are necessary. Let's invest in schools of nursing so that we can train more to improve healthcare.
I love it. Sujat, you know, as you just said also, that money already currently exists. This does not require an act of Congress. This does not require billions of new dollars to be found. It's simply reclassification of a designation that would open up opportunity for millions of Americans that would not otherwise be able to afford access into this. So Sujat, as we talk about this, and we just heard from Yvonne, there is a lot of discussion about the amount of funding and emphasis from early childhood education through high school that has created an implicit assumption that the most respected and high-paying professions for best academic achievers exist in things like computer science and engineering. So why do you think that we should be more inclined to pursue nursing as a career if it was viewed more as a STEM process?
Absolutely. Great question, Rebecca. So we have seen almost 100,000 nurses left profession during COVID, with additional 610,000 intending to leave by 2027 by NCBN. And as per AACN, 53% decline in nursing school application. And US Bureau of Statistics now 2023 projects 200,000 openings for RNs each year through 2021. This shows the US healthcare is impacted heavily by nursing shortage. So how can we attract this young people who has the STEM education starting from childhood to be able to get into this nursing? So this potential impact of STEM is very significant. So one could provide nursing field with much deserved recognition and prestige and elevate the profession, status of the profession, highlighting its scientific and technological aspects. This could lead to increased opportunities for nurses to engage cutting-edge research projects. This may attract, if they have the knowledge, and as a young person, having the STEM knowledge, that would definitely influence their decision in enrolling into nursing. And it would also help if nursing is recognized as a STEM field. They could potentially qualify for H-1B visas more easily, as they could meet the criteria for working in specialty occupation. This could open up more opportunities in nursing for international students to work in the US and other countries with the similar immigration policies addressing shortages and promoting global mobility of nurses. So in an ever-changing, increasingly complex world, it is more important than ever that our nation's youth are prepared to bring knowledge and skills to solve problems, make sense of information, and know how to gather and evaluate the evidence to make decisions regarding whether or more young people might be inclined to pursue nursing as a career if it was viewed with more STEM focus. It is a likely consequence if we do that. A STEM-focused approach could attract individuals who are interested in science, technology, and innovation, but may have to be considered nursing due to misconceptions about the profession. In my opinion, highlighting the scientific and technological aspects of nursing could broaden the appeal of the profession and attract more diverse range of candidates.
Thank you, Sujal. You know, we've been having this discussion, what has become apparent to me over my career as a nurse is the systemic barriers, the policy barriers that have been put in place to allow nursing to advance in its profession. And these are things such as not only being, designated as a STEM, not designated as a STEM, to no reimbursement model for nursing for the services in which they provide, the only healthcare professional who cannot bill for the nursing services they provide. So nursing becomes the only cost structure to healthcare systems. Out of all of our colleagues of OT, PT, respiratory therapy, physicians, we are in this situation where we struggle constantly to gain traction for what I think many of us on this call feel is, what would the world be without nurses? What would we do in a society when everybody else runs the opposite direction? Who's going to step in and care for the sick and the poor and the infirmed? And when someone is at a acute moment facing between death and life, who is going to be that person to stand there between those scenarios and fight to get them to the other side? So, Yvonne, as much as I sit here and think about the challenges, if we don't start taking down some of these barriers that largely have been built in systematically over the last 100 years, specifically in the United States, to prevent nurses from getting an equal seat at the table, comments to your point, nurses are not at the same executive levels as they should be based on being the largest healthcare profession in the United States. The disproportionate systems that are failing us need to change. And my question to you, I guess, is what are going to be the missed opportunities for our profession if nursing is not designated as a STEM on a go-forward basis?
So as you rightfully said earlier, Rebecca, and Suja also alluded to this, is that nurses need to create our own tables also. That, as you said, unfortunately, we are not recognized appropriately. And so our voices should be stronger. And as you said, healthcare organizations or hospitals will crumble without nurses. And we need to demonstrate the value that we bring to the table. So funding, right? And I think we can't say this enough, that funding is what keeps schools of nursing open and operative. And if we don't do this, unfortunately, we are going to continue to see declines in enrollment in schools of nursing. Jason presented the statistic earlier, and schools of nursing are going to struggle financially, and they're going to have to turn away more and more nurses in a time when we have experienced a critical shortage of nurses. So we need to be attracting and training more and not fewer nurses. But I also think that one of the challenges is that, unfortunately, we haven't had other disciplines join us in this effort, but we can't do this alone. That's the reality. We need to engage other disciplines who recognize the value of nurses. So it will be great to see other organizations such as the AMA and other professions that we work so closely with to say that indeed nursing is a STEM field. And this nursing or STEM designation is long overdue. So I look forward to us engaging with other disciplines in this effort as well. And the last thing I will say is that it's also high time that we attract diverse talent in nursing. And a lot of schools of nursing are moving towards this accelerated nursing degree option, where you're taking people who have trained in different disciplines and bringing them into the nursing profession. And in teaching some of these students, boy, do they bring a certain level of innovation and creativity in class, because they've been exposed to diverse fields. There are some that are lawyers, some who have had wonderful careers in other fields, and they're bringing all of that into the nursing profession. So how do we do more of that and open the doors to others who may not have initially considered nursing earlier in their careers, but if there are scholarships and mentorship programs that allow people who may say, you know what, I've done this for 10 years, I'm ready for something different. And these people may be more likely to see nursing as a rewarding career path. And I'll say that personally, although I stumbled into nursing, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I found my purpose in nursing, and I truly wish that others would do so. And I tell people that I meet all the time, there's something in nursing for everyone. So you can be as a respiratory nurse today, a cardiac nurse today, and in a year, choose to pursue a different aspect of nursing. And you can do exactly that. And so the beauty of nursing is that you have the opportunity to really think about what drives you, what you're passionate about, and carve a path along those lines. So I encourage everyone to consider what we can all do collectively to really advance this work and make sure that nursing is appropriately designated as a STEM field.
Thank you, Yvonne. And I think to one of the points that you made, and we forgot to say it on this, is actually most of us who've attained a bachelor's, a master's, all came from the School of Science. We have a bachelor's in science with a designation of serving. We have a master's of science designation in nursing. So the fundamental principle is that in education, we understand this. And the truth is, as many of you have been saying in the chat, we all believe nursing is one of the greatest professions anyone can ever choose because the sky is the limit, and more so now than ever before in history, nurses are breaking through glass ceilings and being representative in industries we've never seen them before. We have nurses leading in pharma and medical device companies and healthcare tech. Most of these organizations, such places at Microsoft, Chief Nurse Informaticist Officer at Microsoft, and places such as Google and others, employ millions of nurses looking at their products to drive them and make them better. With the evolution of AI, the number one ethical debate is coming down to nurses to decide what technology through AI can be used in the healthcare setting. It is said that Florence Nightingale, 200 years ago, started to write in her journals that it was going to take, in the year 1870, she started to write this, that it was going to take 150 years for the world to recognize the vision she had for nursing. If you take 1870 plus 150, you get to this decade. Now, maybe it was foretold, maybe it wasn't, but she knew the struggle of our profession was going to take nearly a century and a half for us to reach the pinnacle, to be represented equally with all other professions. This is our time. What we choose to do as a profession from this moment forward will define where we can go next. And one of the first places we can start is by getting nursing designated as a STEM. We are done with our structured portion of the conversation. I am turning it over to Jason because we hope that some of you will have questions for us so that we can tell you what we're going to do next. So Jason, please take it over.
Thank you, Rebecca, and to our entire panel. I know I speak for everyone on the webinar today, how incredibly inspiring you are on this topic, and we really have just brushed the surface of this conversation. I think it's important that we do leave some time for the chat, given the amount of enthusiasm coming in. I've enjoyed being a listener, but I do want to kind of go back to one quick thing that Rebecca was saying in terms of, you know, the recognition we need. I think of during the pandemic, we all saw on the news the people cheering in the streets and the cities, supporting and being so incredibly grateful for nurses. And what we're talking about here is not an exception to the rules. We're looking for due recognition for something that we have long been and something that we long deserve. This is when we think of us at a critical point in time. We've been at a critical point for a number of decades now, and this is something that is very simple and really easy to fix. So just really quickly, for those of you who might have joined a couple of minutes late, we introduced this at the beginning of the call. This is our website, nursingistem.org. Please visit there. You'll find additional information articulating the purpose of seeking this designation, but what's really important for everyone on the call and to share in their networks is our Join the Coalition button. This isn't just for nurses to sign. This is for anyone within the healthcare field and beyond who really wants to help support this movement that we plan to make over the next couple of months. We plan to start with the Department of Homeland Security, given that they have a really specific list, but we envision this as a domino impact, really looking at every single department and foundation that awards dollars and grant funding to schools, to individual nurses, to ensure that nurses are able to get this funding. If we hope that everyone will continue to visit the Nurses in STEM link on our LinkedIn and continuing to have the conversation. There's such rich conversation happening right now on our website. Stories of people sharing classes that they haven't been able to take. Individuals who had funding and had to return it because they were a nurse. So keep the conversation going, continue to share your stories and your ideas. So again, thank you to everyone on the panel today. I'm going to pass it back to Rebecca for in our remaining 12 minutes to take some of the questions that are coming through our chat and our Q&A.
Thank you, Jason. Judy just posted in the chat. It is clear that the designation as a STEM has tremendous benefits for the nursing profession and ultimately patients and communities. I am eager to better understand the steps needed to get this designation. So I hope that Jason just answered some of that. The truth is what we would like to see from many is we need to start educating. I think the vast majority of nurses do not know about this. I think the vast majority of legislatures also have no idea that nurses are not designated as STEM. They just keep thinking they're pulling billions of dollars into education and hospitals, and they think that money is going to nursing. And what they actually start to realize is when we educate them is that nurses have been left out specifically through policies and systematic barriers that prevent them from accessing equal dollars that they think is funding that. So get involved, sign this petition, share it. And what you're going to see as we evolve this is new ways for us to engage. This is the first of several meetings. We're going to be moving forward under Jason's direction on how we're going to do more in that direction. So one of the questions that came up also is, what ways should nurses be addressing this issue within their own health systems if there is an opportunity to actually have hospitals engage or move in those things? And so, Jason, any ideas on what they should be doing or speaking to their chief nursing officers or other nurses and things about how they can support in that direction?
Awareness, awareness, awareness. Overwhelming, resounding over the last 6 months of kind of helping to lead this coalition. The immediate aha, how is nursing not STEM is 90% of the time the case. People just simply don't know. And then there's a clear interest in getting involved and addressing this issue. If you visit our website, we've listed some of the growing lists of higher education institutions, healthcare organizations that are joining on and signing on to this coalition. So really starts with the sharing our website and spreading the word.
Thank you. There was a question in the chat also that I said, how come or how can we get more men into nursing as well? And so, Jason, you have some thoughts and insights onto
Happy
how
to.
do we? Yes, thank you.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I was an educator for 11 years, and I wasn't just a teacher. I intentionally took under, my wing the male students in my program. I experienced a lot of gender bias. My first day of clinical as a nurse, I was told that they didn't want me on the postpartum unit. So there's a lot of gender bias within nursing, and I think it's important to really look at how this could impact that sort of umbrella, not just under, the practice clinically. About 92% of nurse educators are female. And this is an opportunity to look at ways that we could try to improve the gender, distribution of faculty educators as men seek higher levels of nursing education. There's about a 75% of nurse educators are white. So how can this improve the racial demographics of those who are teaching our students? I can tell you firsthand, as a male, it was hard to not have any male faculty when I was a student, and for the faculty to know me by name before I even walked into a classroom. So how can, this can have a really direct impact on welcoming, and people feel, as they walk into a classroom, that there's people of their gender and their race and backgrounds.
Thank you, Jason. Question came up, can specialty nursing organizations sign on to support this work?
If you're looking for me, 100%. And if you look at our list, you already see some groups like GDNA, NINA has voiced their support, and they'll be on our website if they aren't already, but absolutely healthcare organizations, institutes of higher education, nursing organizations, professional organizations outside of nursing. We welcome and appreciate their support.
And so you may ask why this is where we are. This is literally conversations weeks in to get to this point. So you guys, everybody who joined today is right at the cusp of where we're taking this fight. And the timeline is that this fight will happen, drafting of documents, hopefully by the end of April, and then the political outside support, because the rulings take place in August of most years. So this is why we're doing this now. Time is of the essence. This is not one of those things that is what we've heard about with other initiatives in nursing that have taken time. We're taking this, running it very much. It's a business operation and being highly effective with the support of other organizations who are teaching and supporting nurses to be better in this designation. When we look at some of the questions that are coming in, Jason, and basically to Shuja and to Yvonne, I think what I'd like to do is leave everyone with one last statement, one last takeaway that we would like the audience to leave with. So if that's okay, I'm going to turn it over. Shuja, one last point that you want the audience to think about when they're recognizing nursing as a STEM so that they can take it away as a last point.
Sure. The STEM designation could definitely, we all know that, elevate the status of nursing profession, highlighting in scientific and technological aspects. The recognition may attract, to your earlier question, that, to bring male nurses to nursing field, to pursue nursing as a career. So in many countries, STEM field receives significant attention and resources for research and development. So by designating a nursing as a STEM field, there could be a shift in perception towards nursing as a scientific discipline that contributes to medical advancements and innovations. So having that will help to bring more innovators into nursing and more researchers and more informaticists. And this could lead to an increased funding for nursing research, more opportunities for nurses to engage cutting-edge research projects, and greater recognition for nurses as a valuable contribution. So one thing I would advise you to do is to support this coalition, this national coalition, and do the best. And let's elevate the profession of nursing. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuja. Yvonne.
So I'll say the nursing has allowed me to really add value to people's lives and the lives of communities that I serve locally and globally. And it's actually allowed me to also care for people with chronic and acute cardiovascular conditions. Nursing has allowed me to design clinical trials to improve blood pressure control, but also co-found a nursing organization, the Ghanaian Diaspora Nursing Alliance. But ultimately, it's allowed me to find my purpose. And this is the right time to elevate the nursing profession and ensure that this designation happens. There are a lot of complex things that we face, but the fact that this requires a simple act from ICE and the Student Exchange Visitor Program and does not require a legislation to be passed, for me, gives me hope. Because unfortunately, we know that there are things that get in the way, but this is simple enough for us to amplify the work that this coalition is doing, share the message. Please share your experiences on social media. Unfortunately, we know that social media is where you're hearing a lot of these stories. So if you do share your story, use the hashtag #NursingASTEM in your post, and let's amplify the message and get everyone on the same page to recognize that indeed nursing has always been a STEM field and it'll always be a STEM field. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. And for everyone out there that is looking at this, the world of nursing is changing, and it's changing for the better. So the more of us that get involved to advance conversations to a national scale is what we're going to need here. And what I'm going to say to each of you is that with our ability to actually define who we are as a profession, that is what is going to be critically necessary. So this is our moment in time, and I've seen it in the post, to explain what you do as a nurse, the classes you took, the challenges you faced both getting funding and access to resources to become a nurse are going to be critical in this conversation. Because as we've seen other designations in engineering, it has allowed for more women to access funding mechanisms. It allowed more of those classified in minority statuses to access resources. And nursing is in need of those resources. So we want to thank you for participating today. There's going to be more to come. I'm going to leave it with Jason with one final thought, but we appreciate you spending this hour with us. And we hope that in the near future, because of your participation, the starting of this conversation, we're going to do one of the most monumental seismic changes in systemic barriers to elevate the nursing profession in history by getting nursing designated as a STEM. And so we thank you for being with you and your support on that. And Jason, I'm turning it on over to you to wrap us up.
Not sure how I follow up any of those closing remarks from any of our panelists, and Rebecca, our moderator. Thank you everyone for joining today. This will be recorded, so please make sure that you encourage people who are not able to attend today to take the time to visit our website. We'll have this on the website in the next couple of days. One of the things I'm thinking about is you walking around with an iPad or a computer at work and showing this to people and getting signatures. This isn't just about getting organizations to sign on. It's the volume of individual signatures as well. And one of the things that's been really wonderful is the use of social media and LinkedIn to really grow our voice. The thing that I'm most encouraged by is that we haven't been working on this very long, but there's such tremendous momentum behind us, and it's really up to everyone to make sure that it continues and grows. So once again, thank you for everyone being here today. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and stay in touch, stay involved on social media with us.